Hey everyone, it's Blake, and welcome in to episode number 19 of our WWE 2021 Save and TEW 2020. This is SmackDown, and we are on the road. We continue to be on the road to Great American Bash. Only a couple episodes of SmackDown before we get to it, which of course is our SmackDown branded show. We'll have a Raw coming up on the next video, but yes, this is after this one, only a couple videos away from our next pay-per-view, which is Great American Bash, and we kick things off here with a pre-show match with Cedric Alexander getting the win over Lince Dorado. Gets a 46 fine rating here for the pre-show. We see Lince Dorado getting better at his gimmick. We just wanted to give Cedric a win because he's kind of been in that role where he's taken a lot of the falls against some of the heels. But we want to continue to, kind of give him some momentum, if any, a little bit. I don't think this is going to give him a ton, but Cedric gets a win, and this was just kind of the purpose of this as a pre-show to give Cedric a nice victory, which he has not had a lot of those in our save. And then we get a pretty not great match here, as it is 31. Not great. Jason Jordan seemingly gets, the talking to for not doing a great job putting the match together. But that's okay. This was actually the first, and the reason we put this one together, actually the first match we've had Commander Aziz in. So that was sort of the point here to see what we could get out of it. As you can see, his in-ring performance was the same as the match rating at 31. So not great, and we also did put Apollo Crews in this situation. He's not going to be on the main SmackDown show, but we wanted to put him in there in a tag team spot with Aziz, since that is still technically his manager. And I was just curious more than anything. Hopefully this doesn't hurt Cruz's momentum too much. Of course, he's got the Intercontinental Championship match coming up at Great American Bash. He'll defend the title against Shinsuke Nakamura, who we'll get to in a second. But I really just wanted this to be something where we could just see, if anything, with Aziz. I mean, it's his first match, so there's really not a whole lot to take away from it. But we at least tried to do some things and see what came of it. And as we see, the rating was not great. I mean, if we'd have picked a different road agent, maybe gets a little higher, but that wasn't really the point here. So it is Cruz and Aziz getting the win over Otis and Titus O'Neil, and that is going to lead us into the main card here on SmackDown. And we're going to start off, as you guys know, I like to do this. I like to have a big, strong opening segment, and we like to finish with a big opening segment. We're going to start off with a really strong segment here, I think. Hopefully, from a rating standpoint, we'll see what it gets. Something we kind of teased last week. And it gets a 77. It is the continued kind of storyline we've had going on with Bray Wyatt and Drew McIntyre. And it is Drew McIntyre walking to the ring. He reminds us last week he told Bray Wyatt he was going to take him to hell, and he meant it. And Bray appears on the screen. He is sitting in a dark room in a rocking chair. Just have to ignore that we still have the Fiend's photo here. I actually tried to change that, but I realized I forgot to do it a little too late. And you can't change the photo in-game in the PM portion, so I had to do that before we actually got to SmackDown. We'll do that later. But Bray in the room, and he says, Drew. What Drew has failed to realize is that Bray Wyatt, is the hero, and that Drew is the villain, and his hero's journey has only just begun. It was just a very short, simple, mysterious, delivery from Bray Wyatt. Lights go out. When they come back on, a vacant rocking chair sitting ringside as McIntyre stares at it. So that is the next sort of point in our storyline here. And as we see, we did gain some heat out of it. So that's good to know with this one. So more kind of interesting dynamic introduced here from Bray Wyatt. And it did say, we're hinting at a future heel turn from Bray Wyatt. He's still listed in this mod as a face when we started. So we'll kind of see what comes of that, but I didn't feel like this was necessarily the place to do it just yet, even though we've had these two battling back and forth, and I'm sure, as you can tell, at least, maybe it seems obvious that Bray Wyatt should already have turned heel, but this is where we start to factor in sort of this hero-villain thing, and as you'll see, I think we've got some pretty cool stuff in store for how this one's going to play out. So good opening segment. This is what we wanted, and we'll see where it goes from here. And match-wise, we start off with Shinsuke Nakamura getting a win in 15:04 over Sami Zayn. 61 here for the rating. These two are pretty even, so that's about what we expected. Looks like Nakamura was off his game, though. Hopefully, he gets that out of the way before we head into that Intercontinental Championship match at Great American Bash. He's the challenger for Apollo Crews. And this was really just a way to kind of build up Nakamura a little bit. His momentum has been cooled. I think it was cooled heading into this in terms of the the category that he was in with momentum. So we just wanted to try to give him a win here to see if that kind of builds it up a little bit so we don't get knocked for the momentum or anything like that going into that match with Crews. So that was really kind of served the purpose here. And we just don't have a lot going on for Zayn right now, but that'll change here in the next month or so. And that leads us into a promo from Mick Foley, which he announces that since the past several matches involving Damian Priest and Baron Corbin have ended in DQs, Foley's going to make sure that doesn't happen in the next one they have. And at the Great American Bash, it will be Damian Priest versus Baron Corbin in a hardcore match. And 56 here, and I think that's because we did have Priest and Corbin added in, even though they're not on screen here. We may have checked something that was maybe overness or something like that, probably for those two. They're, neither one of them are that over. But that's what we had. That's probably why this rating's a little low. We're, as you can probably tell, we're trying to build up one of these guys in particular. And also, as we've noted before, we have already added this to the pre-booking. It's going to ask me to do that in a second, and we'll go ahead and just get through that. But with Priest and Corbin, they don't have chemistry. Remember, we've had one match, I guess, between them, or two. I can't remember. But they had no chemistry. And so I think we've only had one match between them. But we're still got to go to it because it was kind of already in the plan. So they are going to have a hardcore match. So that's another match added to the Great American Bash pay-per-view. And then it's Sonya Deville heading to the ring for her match. She won last week. Of course, ever since she's been introduced here in recent weeks, she has been on a dominant sort of tear. And as she's walking backstage, she sees Shayna Baszler studying her. So Deville walks up to Baszler, and the two deliver determined stares at one another before Deville walks off. So that adds some interest as to what that could lead to. These, like I said, Deville's been dominant, but as we know, Baszler has been even more dominant in terms of what she's done since we started this save. She's just won. She's just won matches. That's all she's done. So that kind of sets up what could be an interesting dynamic here, and you'll see we have some plans for these two here in the coming weeks and months. So that's kind of a tease, I think you'll see, for what's to come. So 53, not a great rating, and I think you're going to see that with this show's probably not going to be as highly rated as some of the recent ones we've had, but we needed to kind of introduce some of these different people in different situations. We're trying to kind of get some of these people that haven't been featured as much over. So I think you'll see at the end of this card, and really with some of these ratings, they're not as high as a lot of the shows we've done at this point. This could actually wind up being one of our worst shows yet from overall rating standpoint. We'll see, but I don't care. 53, it's good, and this is again teasing a storyline we have in the works. And just like I said, the rating here 48 as it is Sonya Deville getting a win over Naomi. 756 here as we see both of them have a groundswell of public support, so that knocked the match rating up a bit. And I know I hate having to put Naomi in these spots, but as we've said before, we don't have a necessarily deep roster. That's going to change, I think, over the next month or two because we do have some plans in the works, not just on Raw, which we've talked about many times before, the Raw Women's Division curse, but on SmackDown as well. We have some things we're introducing, and I think that'll help us kind of spread out a little more of these, Naomi having to take losses and that kind of stuff. Like, we'll have a little bit more opportunity there to kind of get her out of that, but right now, we just don't have the numbers. So, unfortunately, for some of the plans we have in the works, she's kind of been slotted in there a couple times. So, anyways, it's Deville winning, and that, again, adds to her streak thus far, and we'll see where things go from there with her. Another kind of, mid-level rating here of 55, as we see a graphic where it is announcing Mustafa Ali will be in action next week. He's kind of just been laying back a little bit since the King of the Ring. Of course, he lost his quarterfinal match to Cesaro, then attacked Cesaro afterwards. He's been in matches, and he's been on the winning side of matches in some of these six-man and tag team matches in recent weeks, but he will be in singles action next week, so we'll see where that leads for Mustafa Ali. And another one that's I told you guys, like I hinted at this, I had a feeling, like our ratings are not great. This show, I'd be surprised maybe if it gets above a 70 at the most. 49 overall here, as it is the kind of like a hype package, I guess you could say, for the Viking Raiders, who won that match last week against the Usos, or they won the match against the New Day to become the number one contenders. The Usos were a little bit, involved in that. Not a ton, but maybe it was enough to give the Viking Raiders the edge to have that spot to face the Usos now at Great American Bash, and so we see some highlights from the Viking Raiders and then impressive power and strength. So that's our tag team match for Great American Bash, and we go into Seth Rollins. So as always, we know Rollins has pretty much given us a match that's always going to be a 70 or above. That's the case here. Got the crowd buzzing. I would hope so after some of these, mediocre ratings we've had over the last several segments. But it's Seth Rollins defeating Humberto Carrillo in 10:24 with the curb stomp. We did do a still the show note on this. We wanted to see how good we could get with these two. And I think probably for the most part that did pretty well. And really, I think, overall, if we look kind of at everything, we did pretty well here. I think this is what we wanted. We wanted to have a great match. And we kind of wanted to showcase Humberto a little bit. We didn't want to put him exactly on Seth Rollins' level, but we wanted to have this a good match, and that's what it was. But this match is going to kind of serve what's to come, and that is afterwards, where Rollins goes to grab the mic. Remember we teased last week, he said he was going to prove that he's the rightful king of the ring, that he has video evidence to prove it, and he was the one that should have won it, not that piece of garbage Daniel Bryan. New Day's music hits. They come out for their upcoming match with Kofi telling Rollins that nobody has time for his delusional nonsense and that he did lose fair and square to Bryan at King of the Ring. New Day start dancing, and their music continues to play as Rollins looks dumbfounded. So this is kind of to set up, and actually I think I had written this a different way before, and I don't think I saved it, but we're basically setting up into, I tried to make this a little more serious, and I just don't think that I added the note in. I may just not have added it to the angle writer, but we want to kind of set this up where the New Day are coming out. They have their own business to prove here after losing that match to the Viking Raiders. That's kind of the theme behind this, and that they're just not going to sit around and wait and listen to Rollins, with his delusional nonsense. That's kind of what it comes down to. So the New Day have their own business to get to, as they are clearly, not too thrilled with losing that match to the Viking Raiders, and they are trying to get back on track here. But a great segment rating, and that will lead into the match with the New Day getting the win over Elias and Jackson Riker. 62, that's fine. We were just kind of setting this up to where the New Day would be able to get kind of their victory back from last week. They're not happy about it. They felt like they should have got the shot at the Usos at Great American Bash. It didn't work out that way, but as you'll see, we've kind of gone into a 4 segment that all kind of tie together here, and that's going to lead us into the next part, which is as the New Day coming back after their victory, making their way backstage. Rollins is right there waiting on Kingston. The two start to brawl. Woods and other superstars, officials try to break everything up. Gets a 71. I'm sure you can probably start to put it together in your mind. You probably know where this is headed as we build towards Great American Bash, but this is something we wanted to try to get accomplished here because the New Day are not in that tag team match for the titles at Great American Bash, but again, you could probably understand we want to try to get Kofi Kingston on that card, or get the New Day on that card in some way, shape, or form. And again, you can probably guess where this is headed. So a little brawl here with these two, and we will see if there's anything other than probably just a pretty straightforward expectation for what this is going to lead to from Mick Foley and what announcement he can make next week. And then, all right, here we go. Now we're talking. Great segment. 83, Bianca Belair. She's tired of hearing about Charlotte Flair. That's all she's heard about. She has a much bigger challenge ahead of her with the actual number one contender, and that is Asuka. And Bianca says that the way she sees it, Charlotte is back at the back of the line. Only thing she's concerned with is finding out if she is ready for Asuka. So great promo here from Bianca. She's been money so far, like everything she's done. I mean, really, like her segments, matches, like everything's been great with Bianca. No surprise. She's very over. So this kind of, pushes Charlotte away from the situation a little bit as we head towards Bianca and Asuka at Great American Bash. But not going to be completely away because we actually have a match with these in particular, as it is Bianca and Asuka teaming together to defeat Charlotte and Nia Jax. Asuka getting the pin on Nia Jax. 60 rating overall. Nia was the weak link here. And this kind of continues to advance the storyline because it does involve Charlotte still. Asuka off her game. It is what it is. Charlotte and Nia, they've both been penalized in any matches we've had with them because of their poor form, but there's really not a whole lot we can do about it right now because we just haven't really slotted them in positions. Like we said, they've lost matches, and Charlotte lost that big match against Asuka. But again, as you can see, how the storyline is titled, there's more to come with this, and there's several more plot points we have to get to with the overall story here. But nonetheless, we do have Bianca and Asuka, pretty much having a win here. And Bianca, like I said, she's not worried about Charlotte. She's only worried about Asuka, and they team together here to get the win over Flair and Nia. And then we go into a mic situation here with Jeff Hardy grabbing the mic. And 73 here, he takes aim at his match with Roman Reigns at Great American Bash. Jeff basically says, hey, this is my last shot, but it isn't just about the gold. It's about him doing whatever it takes to end his reign of destruction once and for all. Of course, Jeff is the one who kind of stepped up after King of the Ring, after Roman Reigns just destroyed R-Truth, who we still haven't seen since. Jeff stepped up, and that led to Mick Foley announcing that Reigns would have to face Jeff Hardy and defend the Universal Championship against him at Great American Bash. So Jeff with a nice promo here leading into his main event match, which is him getting the victory against Jinder Mahal. 62, not probably, that's not our usual rating for our main events, but this is, again, to sort of further a storyline. You'll see. We're not done yet. But this is kind of just, again, this is just something we run into sometimes when you try to build up some of these people in some of these spots. And this is just one of those situations where matchup-wise, like a lot of our matches, we're not going to draw great ratings, but it's really been about the storylines and pushing the angles. So Jeff gets a win to build a little momentum heading in, once again, to that match he's going to have with Roman Reigns for the Universal title. Speaking of Roman Reigns, an 83. Fantastic. We see Reigns sitting with Paul Heyman at a large table. Reigns with an angry look on his face, and Heyman says that the Universal Champion has had enough this time and that we will not see him until the Great American Bash, and then specifically says not only Jeff Hardy, but Mick Foley as well. If you know what's good for you, you better not show up. So a threat, I guess you could say, coming from Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns, delivered to not only Jeff Hardy, who is the opponent for Reigns, but to our general manager, Mick Foley. So what does that mean? What is all that about? I think we probably have some idea, as Roman has continued to ask for this hymn, whoever this hymn is, and Foley has not delivered it to him. So it sounds like Heyman is sort of teasing there could be repercussions, not for anyone else other than Jeff Hardy, but there could sort of also be them for Mick Foley, who is, again, our actual authority figure on SmackDown. So that's an interesting tease there. And so we go off the air with that kind of being the one to finish it as we continue the build. And we were now only one show away from the Great American Bash. So that's kind of our big angle heading into it, of course. As I said, I said it earlier, I didn't think this show was going to get above a 70, right at a 70. So that sounds about right. Lost its popularity. It is what it is. I'm okay with that. This was a show where, again, we needed to establish some things, and it had to do with some of these people that are really just kind of in that mid-card range in a lot of situations. And this, I thought, was sort of the best way to establish it. And again, I did some of these segments knowing they weren't going to get huge ratings, but that's fine. So a 70, it is what it is. Not our worst show we've had before, but I think it's probably our third worst now that I think about it, with all the ones we've done. But it's okay. I still think we got a lot of momentum heading into Great American Bash, and we've got a couple more shows to get to before we get there. But before we wrap up this particular episode, let's see if there are any news items we need to get to. Well, right off the bat, we see that Tully Blanchard may be someone that, if we wanted him, I suppose we could get him, since his contract is up with AEW. I don't, right now I don't really think of any reason why we would need Tully. I mean, look, it'd be great to have a nice manager. Maybe it's a situation where we do it, but I forgot also, it's our owner goal with Vince that we can't hire anyone from medium or above. So I suppose it doesn't even matter, since I don't know that we want to break that and get fired into the save. So meanwhile, we do see something here. Natty is back at 100%. That's good to know. As if you watched the previous episode, we were wondering, oh my goodness, were we hit by another injury on the Raw Women's Division? But it turned out Natty just had a broken toe. So she's back and really only missed, I guess, a couple days. So good to know there. Let's check our email. Meanwhile, SmackDown, great show. Not an awesome show. Great show. Email, let's see. We've got a development contract ending. We will address that if needed here. Naomi's contract is ending, so that is something we need to address probably right now. I mean, we don't really have any desire to lose Naomi, so we're gonna go ahead and do this and just offer her a deal. I mean, we'll do 3 years. I think I'm just gonna make it pretty standard here because I don't think there's any reason not to. She wants a higher cut of the merchandise. That's fine. We've got all the money. What do we care? It's not my money. All right, so there we go. We got an offer into Naomi. So we've dealt with that. Like I said, I'll deal with the developmental stuff. Natty's fit, good to know. Drug test fees, as always. SmackDown viewing figures, 4.82. I think that's pretty low, actually. I think we've had a lot of 5s in that category. So that's pretty much it. When we look at where things stand, like I said, now we will move towards. We're only, one SmackDown away. Next video will be Raw. And then it will be the Great American Bash, and I'm amped up because I love the pay-per-views. I like building to them, but once we actually get to the pay-per-views, we just usually have some pretty big stuff planned. So that will also be the case for the Great American Bash once we get to that. So that's where we stand right now. And yes, on the next episode, it will be Raw. So as always, be sure to subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. And we will, continue to be on the road to Great American Bash. And then, of course, for Raw, they are on the road to SummerSlam. And just a lot of big developments in the works, I think is fair to say, with where we're at there. So, yes, be sure to subscribe and share all that. And thanks, as always, for the great feedback. And thanks for watching, as usual. And on the next episode, it will be another edition of WWE Raw.